In 1991, what screen legend had a son that had their own cartoon series? Well, you know because you saw the thumbnail and the title of this video. We're going to talk about the toys based on the cartoon series James Bond Jr. Can you believe it? They made a damn James Bond Jr. I'm sure that's not as bad as that Ace Ventura Jr. crap. It wasn't even a cartoon. But in 1989, there was the James Bond movie, and there wasn't another one until 1995. GoldenEye. They made a video game based on that. Remember that? Anyway, in 1991, they decided to make a James Bond. 1991, they decided to make a James Bond cartoon. Yeah, a cartoon series based on James Bond. I'll be honest, in 1991, I was starting to get into the toys, but I didn't care nothing about James Bond toys, at least not based on a cartoon I never even heard of. I've never even heard of this cartoon, lasted one season. Did you watch it? Now, in the early 90s, I was starting to get back into cartoons, thanks to cartoons like Batman the Animated Series. Great Batman cartoon right there, a great cartoon on its own, great television show on its own. Something about James Bond Jr., I just couldn't get into it, because I didn't know about it. I don't know, maybe they didn't promote on the right days or something. It just didn't seem like it was a target audience, I guess. So what was the storyline of this James Bond cartoon? Well, I looked into it for you, and I just couldn't bring myself to even write a script to talk about it. I started reading about it, and I was like, this is stupid. James Bond in high school. Oh, but I didn't want to leave you with nothing, not knowing the backstory or nothing. And what characters from the movie came over the cartoon, and who's James Bond Jr.'s mom? I couldn't figure that one out. So here's a damn talking lemon to explain to you the James Bond cartoon, so I don't have to.
Let me tell you about James Bond Jr., a lesser-known but intriguing slice of Bond history. The series first hit the airwaves back in 1991, designed to introduce a younger generation to the world of espionage, just a little more Saturday morning friendly. It ran for a single season but packed in 65 episodes, airing in syndication until early 1992. Now, rather than focusing on the iconic 007 himself, this animated series followed his supposed nephew, James Bond Jr. A teenage version of the super spy, Bond Jr. attended Warfield Academy, a boarding school where his life was anything but ordinary. Between classes, James and his tight-knit group of friends tackled dangerous missions, often facing off against a global criminal organization known as SCUM, short for Saboteurs and Criminals United in Mayhem. He wasn't alone in his adventures. At his side was IQ, the gadget genius, and a clear nod to the Bond film's beloved Q. Then there was Gordo Leiter, son of CIA agent Felix Leiter, another connection to the movie universe. They were joined by Tracy Milbanks, the brains and heart of the group, and the occasionally helpful Coach Mitchell, who provided comic relief and the odd assist. What really gave the show its Bond DNA was the inclusion of a few familiar faces from the film franchise, though they came with some animated twists. Jaws, with his signature metal teeth, made multiple appearances. So did Oddjob, known for his deadly bowler hat. Even Dr. No showed up, though oddly enough, he had green skin and a far more sci-fi vibe than fans of the original film would recognize. Though it was clearly aimed at kids, James Bond Jr. still had that unmistakable Bond feel, gadgets, globe-trotting, and a hero who never backed down from a challenge. It may not be canon, but it left a lasting impression on many who grew up in the early 90s. So if you've ever wondered what it would be like if James Bond had a teenage nephew fighting cartoon villains, well, now you know. Double asterisk.
See that, Larry? See that? You got replaced by a damn talking lemon.
Suck my fat one, you cheap dime store hood.
Who told you you had a big one?
Hey, it's the biggest one in 4 counties.
I really doubt that. You live on an ice planet, and I'm sure it's all shriveled up.
This dummy thinks I can't even walk.
But as you can see, that's the story of James Bond Jr. And you can see from hearing that, well, I just couldn't bring myself to talk about it. The cartoon, nothing bad about the cartoon. I never saw it. Might have been good. Or the toy line. I don't even remember these in the store. I'm sure they ended up after a month at Toys R Us. I'm sure they ended up at Toy Liquidators or KB Toys and that being out by the barking dogs. Again, nothing against the show. The toys look like they're well made. Cartoon might be good. It just didn't seem right for a cartoon. It just seems so a cash grab, as they say. Junior, it wasn't even James Bond. You couldn't even root it in that way. You couldn't be like, oh, James Bond when he was a teenager. No. And why does he still have 007? I don't know. But as you can see, the action figures don't look that bad. It's just so generic. The cartoon, the toy line, it just doesn't do anything. Now, it has a couple of gimmicks that was really big in the late 80s, early 90s for at least Hasbro. At this time, they were just bought Kenner or Tyco and was crossing all over. So it really fits into that time period. But let's dig through these figures.
James Bond Jr. secret mission, but scum is ready. Walker the Plank hooks IQ. Jaws is having a snack. Odd Job is flipping his lid. But IQ packs a punch, and James Bond Jr. dives into action. Mission accomplished. James Bond Jr. figures and vehicles sold separately.
First, let's look at the one based on James Bond himself. There was James Bond Jr. wearing flight gear. Yep. James Bond Jr. jumps out of airplanes. And then there was James Bond Jr. ninja gear. I think that's called stolen valor. I guess. Does it count if you're stealing the identity of a ninja? I mean, maybe James Bond went to ninja school? I'm not really sure. And then there was James Bond Jr. scuba gear. This James Bond got more outfits than a Kenner Batman figure in the 90s. Then there was the regular street clothes. That's right. It doesn't even look like a high school student. Look at him right here. He looks in his 20s. What's going on about that? And let's look at some other figures for the line. There was Buddy Mitchell. There he is, Buddy Mitchell. Reminds me of that guy that was in Dust Till Dawn in a bunch of action movies. Remember? That guy right there. Sorry, I can't think of his name. There was, believe it or not, this is a real name, or a real name of a character on a cartoon and a toy line, Captain Walt the Plank. Walt D. Plank. You heard me right. It was kind of like the punk rider, I guess, of the toy line. Doesn't really much look like a pirate. I guess he's an eye patch, so that's okay. Then there was Dr. Derange. He's crazy. He's deranged. He's Dr. Derange. Give me Dr. Detroit anytime. And then, from the movie, there was Dr. No. Wait a minute, I don't remember Dr. No being a green alien. It looked like a cat. Well, I guess he was for this cartoon line. And then there was Gordo Letter. Gordo Letter. This is the skateboarder of the line. Doesn't look like his name would be Gordo. And then there was IQ. IQ. How smart is this guy if he's wearing a lab coat made out of paper? And then there was Odd Job, the rapper of the storyline. Yeah, a rapper. Hey, it was the early 90s. You had to throw a rapper in there. And then Jaws. I did a whole video about the Mego Jaws, and look at there. Here's another Jaws figure. Why is an adult goon trying to beat up a kid in high school? Well, I didn't watch the TV show. But as you can see, the figures didn't look that bad. The figures could have been worse. But again, it's just so generic. The toy line, you're like, Junkman, why are you making a video on this? And if you think it's just generic, well, we got to talk about something, right? I make one video a day. I used to make two. That's why I almost said two. One video a day, man. I got to talk about it. Sometimes you got to scrape that bottom of the barrel. And I thought it was something I didn't hear people talk about that much anymore. So why not talk James Bond Jr.? Now, there was some vehicles you could put your James Bond Jr. figure or your Jaws figure in, whatever one you wanted to. You didn't have to. You could just do a storyline with Odd Job stole one of these cards if you didn't want James Bond in it. Let's check them out. There was Scum Shark. I guess this is the one that goes underwater. Wait a minute, that one goes underwater. What do you do with Subcycle? A motorcycle underwater. What's going on? And then there was Sports Car. Sports car right here. If you're James Bond, you gotta have a sports car. Look at Alien Dr. No trying to sneak up on Sports Car Man. And that's the line right there released by Hasbro. I know a lot of people got different opinions because I'm one of those guys that think Timothy Dalton's one of the best James Bond. I know a guy that thinks George Lindsay is the best James Bond. Goober, get out of here. Anyway, let me know. Did you watch the cartoon? Did you have the toy line? I don't know if anybody's even gonna watch this video. big shout out to AI, so I didn't have to read a whole story about the story of James Bond Jr. Love it or hate it, sure does help somebody like me out. Thanks, guys. We'll talk again later.
Hey, Junkman channel popping though.
Thank you, sir, for that unsolicited testimony.